Welcome to Hey, great shot. This is the Great Shot Podcast, a Cracked Racquets and Tennis Channel Podcast Network production. My name is Alex Gruskin. On tonight's show, we've got another edition of The Deciding Point, our weekly breakdown of everything that happens across the Division I college tennis world. Of course, why did I hold that intro note so long? Because we finally have postseason play to discuss. The 2023 NCAA tournament now officially underway. It was such a privilege for our Cracked Racquets team to be able to broadcast so much of the Division I's opening weekend of action. We are thus so thrilled to be going back at it here this weekend. We'll have broadcast Friday, Saturday of the Super Regionals. You can find them on our Cracked Racquets YouTube channel. Of course, before we get to those Super Regionals, we got to recap everything that happened through the first few days of action. We did have a top seed knocked off, but more broadly, we just had plenty of fantastic tennis for us to discuss here on tonight's show. And joining me to do that, as he has all year long, is a man you all now know as a co-host of these episodes of The Deciding Point, and a man we all know best as the forefather of the college tennis ranks formula predictions, never far from the listed UTR, one of the many dames, postseason or not, to root for the Liberty Flames, the snitch, the professor, the lean, mean vegan machine. It's our dear friend, Chris Halioris. Chris, hey, great shot. I feel like we needed that additional boost of adrenaline with the long note hold. How'd I do?
Well, I mean, the best part about it is I think everybody watching hears the same thing I do, which is absolutely nothing after the first half a second, because we hear the start and then whatever Zoom or whoever does it to us, I don't know. You just go out, which is pleasurable. I don't know. My dogs would probably howl otherwise.
Well, good. That's the only moment I'm silent throughout the course of the show. So it's a
Yeah.
moment of peace for everyone after knowing the ensuing hour that's going to come. But of course, again, what Chris and I plan on doing on tonight's show, much as John Parsons I did last night with the Division I women, is breaking down all 16 regions. We're going to talk about all of them. Now, again, only one upset on the men's side. We'll start there, break that one down, as there was plenty of drama in Columbia. But more broadly, again, we're going to race through those recaps, try to get you to our preview section, because up and down the board, all 8 matches, you can make a case for all 16 teams to advance to the final site. We knew it was going to be an exciting super regional when we forecasted it at the start of the season. We now have those matches, so you're damn sure we're going to spend some time talking about them here on tonight's show. Of course, the reason we're able to talk about all of it day in, day out here on these Deciding Point episodes is because of the support we get from all of you college tennis fans, players, coaches in the college tennis community. And let me just say, for all of you college tennis fans looking for more information, you're trying to gear up for this weekend's action, I implore all of you, check out our Cracked Interviews podcast. I'm doing my best to put together what we like to call our Cracked Racquets press row. I'm trying to speak to one representative from all 32 teams. I believe we have our first 20 interviews already out and available on that Cracked Interviews podcast feed. You can find them all in one link on our website, crackedrackets.com. But shout out to every coach. They've all been so kind, player, representative, whatever it may be, in giving us their time. I'm trying to ask them similar questions about the roster, about the opening weekend, thoughts on the Sweet 16, thoughts on, again, more broadly, some of the biggest storylines in 2023 college tennis as well. So be sure to check all of those out. All of them available on the Cracked Interviews podcast feed. Of course, a shout out here on this podcast, this live show, to our dear friends at Tourna and Ellesse for their continued support of this show week in, week out. And look, all of us are familiar with what Tourna does. They've been synonymous with success in the tennis industry for multiple generations of players now, and all of us can identify a Tourna grip when we see it. But perhaps you didn't know about the latest iteration of Tourna, the Tourna Tuff, a more durable version of the Tourna grip. Still gets tackier when you still retains its iconic trademark blue color as well. So, of course, again, there's no other choice. Make that switch to Tourna today. We're so grateful for their support. Least we can do, ask you to support them as well. You can find Tourna wherever you shop for your tennis supplies. Be sure to test out that new Tourna Tuff grip today. Of course, a massive shout out as well to the support we've gotten all year from our friends at Ellesse. They offer an immense catalog of comfortable, affordable, and athletic clothing for all of you tennis players to employ. Of course, you're going to be fashionable out on the court as well. You all know the phrase, look good, feel good, play good. I promise you'll do exactly that by rocking Ellesse clothes. Again, check out the entire catalog by clicking on the link in the description to this podcast. A massive thank you to the support we have gotten from our friends at Ellesse all season long. With all of that said, Chris Halioris, again, our plan here tonight, run our fans through every listeners, viewers, whatever it may be, through each and every one of the 16 regions we saw unfold over the course of the opening weekend, preview the 8 super regionals. With that in mind, you ready to rock and roll?
I am ready.
All right, well, there's only one place we can start, and that's with our biggest upset of the weekend. 15 of the 16 host sites. Credit to these teams, man. They advance to the Super Regional. It's another testament to how difficult it is to play matches on the road, a testament to the advantage of home crowds, a testament to the energy provided in college tennis. That said, again, we had one upset. It's a team we circled in our preview of the opening weekend of play. It's a team that has been maybe the biggest asterisk, or has the biggest asterisk located next to it entering the postseason, because despite all the ups and downs of this year, we know, if healthy, the talent this roster possesses. Of course, I'm talking about Stanford, Columbia. And Stanford earns a 4-0 victory in match number 1, as do the Lions. You know, last year, Stanford went on the road to an Ivy League school, ended up beating Harvard to advance to the Sweet 16. They do it again, this time via a 4-2 victory over the Columbia Lions. Now, we can talk about the tennis results in a second, what makes this Stanford team makes them so tough to face when at full tilt. But Chris, there was also a lot of drama in this one. Talk me through what you've heard since. Talk me through your thoughts on this result.
Yeah, I haven't heard if we've gotten the result yet. So, but
yeah, the official result's still impending.
The official result, yeah, the match result is, I do not believe, in question. But
4-2 Stanford for the record.
4-2 Stanford. Let's start even before that with the fact that making some of the drama that I'm about to get into even more puzzling and harder to decipher in real time is the fact that we had no cameras. We had no really any accurate live scoring. We are, for the most part, at Columbia, relying on Twitter, and we're relying on Twitter from people who are just getting information from that aren't even on site. And, you know, some of the schools were posting lineups. What I believe, and is, if you go look at the results posted on the team's websites, still shows Philip Kolosinski at 6 for Stanford. That is the crux of the drama, if you will. That was the lineup Stanford submitted. I do not believe Kolosinski played. They pulled him, and, you know, which you was very normal. Pull your number 6 player, bring somebody else into play. Happens all the time. What many fans may not know is there's a time frame in which the coach has to submit that official change. And if you don't meet that time frame, or if you don't do it at all, then you're subject to penalty. And in this case, I believe the question was, the official form was never submitted for the lineup change. Stanford played a different player at 6 than was on the official lineup roster. So when that spot came down to be the clinch for the match, it was under protest from Columbia. They had to play out the remaining match at 2 singles on the off chance that the win for Stanford at 6 wouldn't hold. In the end, Stanford prevails. Banerjee at 2 gets the win, puts any end to the debate of who's going to win the match. I kind of gave up on even thinking about it, and then realized through some talks afterwards that although it may not matter a significant amount, there still has to be a ruling from the NCAA on the protest, because the result of the singles match has to be recorded one way or the other. And so at some point we'll get to see in the ITA results, and I have not looked in the last day or day and a half, but at some point we'll get to see how that match was recorded and get a judgment on, potentially whether the NCAA overturned or upheld, you say, the protest or denied it. But yeah, that was a lot of drama at the end of that match. And as soon as it happened, Twitter, tennis Twitter was going crazy, wondering how do you protest a match and then keep playing? What's going on?
You mentioned the key detail, and I apologize. Clearly, my brain is just done speaking English for the day. I'm going for the Gladwell 10,000 hour theory in 3 days. That's just it. Can I squeeze in 10,000 hours of talking in 72 hours? We'll find out if it's possible. That was the craziest part, is given the fact we didn't have cameras, given the fact that the live scoring was fine, but not the most up to date. It was the chaos of Stanford wins 6 singles, 6-4, 6-3, match under protest, no result. And it was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, that's not a thing. They just played it. Like, there was a result. What are you talking about? And I appreciate the detail you went into because, again, I think you've provided as much clarity as will be available, barring a discussion with the coaches on what happened, and we'll try to get that for you during our press row. But yeah, just requisite drama, lineup drama, everything that makes college tennis so special, right? You don't have to protest the submission of Alejandro Davidovich Fokina playing Jaume Munar. No one's like, no, actually, it's not supposed to be Munar. It's supposed to be Ramos Vinolas. It's like, no, it's not how pros
no
work.
Protests in the Laver Cup, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. Bjorn Borg, the only words he speaks during the entire Laver Cup weekend as he's sitting on that bench is, hey, Kyrgios has to play singles day 2. Yeah, it's like, that's not a thing. And so it was the intrigue. It was the mystery. I mean, it's a blemish. You can't have things happen like that in the round of 32. Like, that just can't be happening in our sport at the same time. God, was it exciting. From a tennis perspective, Stanford takes the doubles point. Ferry wins in straights. Basavaretti, straight set win over Alex Kotzen, which and neither guy has had the best year, both due to injuries, but 3-1 over Kotzen. You have my attention. Maybe most, again, Banerjee with a 3-set clinch over Westphal. It's a really good result for the Stanford team, who also got a win from Kolazinski for what it's worth. I mean, again, I ask you this question, Chris Halioris, where are you with this Stanford tennis team and the options that have emerged 1 through 6?
Yeah, I mean, it's still hard to judge because clearly if this was a fully healthy team, Basing's not playing 4. So, I mean, I had, and maybe he's getting fully healthy and they have the luxury of putting him that low and he becomes a lock, but he lost. So that's obviously not the case yet. So I don't really know what to make of that. It's definitely a good sign that Basavaretti is, had a good weekend. But I mean, come on, this is a guy that played so well in the fall. He shouldn't be number 3 either. So it's really hard to tell. And look, we don't know if that is at this point in time legitimately the order of play for these guys, or if there's, a quote unquote mini stack going on. I'm not sure. I think they won as we sort of expected them to do, but it wasn't the most impressive manner. They still lost at 5. They did get the quote unquote win at 6 that's listed as unfinished. I like 6-3, 6-4 or 6-4, 6-3 unfinished. Never, I don't think I've ever seen that score line before. But yeah, I mean, those are still the 2 worrisome spots in the grand scheme of things for Stanford, right? We know who the top 4 are if they're all playing. Then the question is, okay, even if they do what they're supposed to do, what are they going to get at 5 and 6? It was so. I think and I don't look, they're coming into a team this week that's not exactly firing on all cylinders either. It's going to be another really intriguing match, but I'm not really sure where I am with the Stanford team. I want to be like, wow, yeah, they're back. They're ready to go. They just don't look like they are, but they were good enough. And that's all that matters.
That's exactly the right answer. Rajesh 17-10, Chaudhry 9-9, Kolazinski 11-10. You were really hoping one of those guys would make their presence known, felt, and clear in the lineup. And they've all been fine, but it's still choices for Coach Goldstein, whatever he wants to do on any given day. Similarly to your point, yeah, like I don't know how healthy they are. Even after winning a match like this, they've shown they can win this match. They didn't 4-0 it. I don't know. Health is the one thing that you're not guaranteed to have transfer match to match. Do it again. Like they have the opportunity to beat a Kentucky team that we're going to talk about next year, as that's definitely your second most interesting result. I agree. Like my biggest thing is it's just another one of those weird data points. This is why we have all those Stanford conversations throughout the course of the season, because they are capable of doing this. Last point on Columbia. I think this is the biggest compliment I can give them. This year was a disappointment. And that's a testament to what Coach Howie Endelman and this Columbia group have built over the course of the past decade. And, for this team to go 20-4, for this team to have all the, top 10 recruiting classes they've had over the past year. And, again, to lose a very winnable match at home against Stanford, there's going to be a lot of disappointment around Columbia men's tennis. And again, that's the biggest compliment I can offer, because Harvard just made their first Sweet 16 since 04. Columbia maybe a top six. Like, will they be hosting kickoff weekend? I don't know. If they do, the Ivy League hosting 2 kickoff weekends, that's massive for the conference.
Should
Ivy League
be.
tennis is on the rise. Thus, there's nothing I can say other than this is a disappointment for Columbia. Anything to add?
No, I mean, I think you hit it spot on.
Yeah, and so again, credit to Ferry. 3-3 over Michael Zhang is not easy, and if he goes on the run at the NCAA individuals, it really should surprise no one. All right, after this next region, though, Chris, because we're going to move on now, we're going to go by order of 1 through 16. So for those maybe who want to skip around or find your team, that's what you'll be looking for. But we have to talk next about the upset that almost was a match you were watching and feel fully fine with being distracted while we were trying to broadcast other things. And, that's why I love you. So we got to talk about Kentucky by the skin of their teeth. The defending NCAA finalists, 2023 SEC tournament champions, they survive. They knock off Northwestern 4-3, a match where Kentucky takes the doubles point, and yet it's the Northwestern Wildcats who took 6 first sets in singles. You heard me correctly, Chris. 6 first sets in singles before Kentucky manages to scrap their way back. 3-set victories for the Wildcats from, of course, Joshua Lapadat, who's in that MVP discussion once again this year. Get a massive victory from Draxel, and I want you to tell us about the home stretch of that third set, because I know it was fascinating between he and Steve Foreman. And then, much like it was at the start of the season, transfer Taha Body has come up big whenever this team's needed it. Body, the 3-set win at 4, heartbreaker for a really experienced, and I think now we know, really good Northwestern team. Kentucky survives, Chris. Your reaction?
Yeah, they shouldn't have. I mean, that's all they could think is, I mean, this is what we talk about when we say good teams just find a way. Boy, did they find a way. They had no business winning this match after dropping 6 first sets in singles. 2 of them go to straight sets. And then Northwestern even, puts themselves in a good spot after that. They go up 3-1, and then, we can get into what happened after that. But yeah, Kentucky had no business, winning this match. And that's just what, that's what a good team does is they figure out how to win a match when they have no business winning the match, and they did.
Yeah, I mean, Foreman, 4-all, volley on top of the net, has game point chances. He misses that one. That's a heartbreaker. Because again, Steve has been so reliable. Chris, you saw it. You're making a face.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I can still envision. I still see it in my head. Hell, I'm not even the Northwestern fan, but like for them and the heartbreak, it's everything. It's the underdog against the top 5 school. It's we haven't seen them in the Sweet 16. The fact that they would have been playing, they would have then been playing at Stanford. I mean, 2 non-hosts playing in the next round, all these things that could have happened. But yeah, as we were broadcasting, I had to pull it up to watch. Foreman's at 4-all, 40-15, I don't remember what happens on the 40-15 point. They go to 40-30 and Foreman comes in and he literally gets, it was not exactly as easy, but almost as easy as the Jaden Weeks missed volley on the net that we saw in doubles action that we couldn't believe that ended
Against
up losing
Georgia.
at
Yeah.
Georgia, that ended up losing them that doubles point. It was very, very close to that on top of the net. I mean, just a ball Foreman he's going to make 99 out of 100 times. And somehow he just puts it right into the tape. And that sends it to deuce. Draxel ends up breaking him at deuce and serving it out. That made it 3-2. Lapadat at that point was well on his way to a 6-1 third set to make it 3-all. And at that point, it kind of looked done. But although at that point, Pickens had gotten his break back, he started down like 3-love or 3. It was a break at 3-love or 3-1. I don't remember. He got it back and they were at 4-all. And then he suffers the same fate. He gets broken. And that's the end of the match. And Kentucky survives. It was crazy finish for sure.
Draxel 19-6 this year. Because he's been ranked number 1 in the country, we don't consider that an outstanding season. That's an outstanding season for the senior. Lapadat 22-4, ridiculous. Yeah, Body 18-7. I think he's won his last 9 decisions as well. So that's a really good, again, you get one. Every team gets one. You get one match, you get to fuck around. And usually you find out. If you do, sorry for swearing, this Kentucky team gets away with it. And like, again, they get to host the Super Region. That's huge. And they have that comfort of this week to, again, rebound, get set. But yeah, that's their one. They've used it up because you can't play like that again in the NCAA tournament and expect to advance. Again, any other year, that Northwestern team's at the final site. Shout out to Presley Thieneman. Great win for him at 5 to wrap up his season. But alas, too good. Bratham as well. But alas, too good from the Wildcats. That's why they're the SEC tournament champions. That's why they're the reigning NCAA finalists. They advance to the Sweet 16, where again, they will take on Stanford. All of that said, Chris, now we're in rapid fire mode. I'm going to take us seeds 1 through 16 remaining. I just want your reaction to everything that happened because, again, 15 of 16 host seats advancing to the Super
I can't
Regionals.
wait. And I have an on-show live surprise for Gruskin. He has no idea what's coming.
Well, this is an issue because, now I'm concerned. All right, here we go then. We'll rock and roll. Let's start with the top seeds, TCU. They get, again, a match that was a little closer than that 4-0 scoreline would suggest, but TCU 4 over UT Arlington, 4-0 over an A&M team that did get a really impressive 4-1 win over SMU in round 1. Coach Rodini in my interview said 2 should never play 18 in a second round match. I do think there's some truth to that. But look, there's a reason the Horned Frogs are 2. No fumba, no problem. What'd you see from the Horned Frogs? Except for they're the 2 seeds, not the 1. I messed it up. It's the closest button. We'll get to 1 next.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a Freudian slip or something there.
10,000 hours, Chris. You do 25 interviews and try speaking English at 10.
I'm just so before I give my take on TCU, can I say how I won't even say elated, but just how much pleasure it brought me to see Ramsey tweeting you for thanking you for having him on. I'm not going to get into details, but that was just so great.
We're back, baby. That one was for Matty Stacks.
Yeah. Look, TCU, we expected. Look, A&M came in hurt. Schachter played this weekend, but they dropped him to 2, still hurting from, he didn't play the weekend before SEC. He didn't play SEC tournament. They felt like they needed to have him. They put him in, injury still lingering. No Julio Perego, who is hurt. Yes, they're super, super deep, but I don't care how deep you are, you have a very stealthy top of the lineup to deal with at TCU. And whether you can compete at, 4, 5, 6 is not a question when you're going to just not, and Noah Schachter competed at 2. But just too much talent on the TCU side for them to deal with this weekend. I don't even think it was really, enough for us to go no Famba. and still not enough of a test for us to tell what they've got.
Yeah. Vivez, Jirasek, Maxted. Who you picking right now? 6 singles match on the line.
Vives.
All right, interesting. That's where Chris Halioris is with the Horned Frogs, are national indoor champions, who are the 2 seeds, not the 1 seed. That's why when I saw A&M not Pepperdine, I was like, wait, I think I did something wrong. Because University of Texas was your number 1 seeds. And again, it was a good start for the Longhorns. 4 over Corpus Christi, 4 over Pepperdine. And again, in a match that was closer than that 4-0 scoreline would indicate. But I mean, look, we know what we're getting from this Texas team at this point. And, for the Longhorns to go out, get a win in a match that, they didn't need Elliott Spizzirri in singles. They take the doubles point. They get straight set wins from Braswell, from Waldeep, from Harper. When you're winning straight set matches at 3-4-5, Chris, that's the recipe to a national title.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the end, it wouldn't have mattered. Spizzirri was going to clinch if he had to. I mean, that's just what Spizzirri does, right? But that 7-5 set for Harper to clinch, if you're Pepperdine when you're sitting at 5-all in that set and you're looking at it going, wow, if we split here, we've already split at 1. We're up a set and a break at 2, and we're up a set and 4-3 at the other match. Like, you're up in every other match, or even you're right in the match. So it's one of those 4-0s that could have, would have, should have, I understand, but it's one of those 4-0s that certainly, even for Texas, probably didn't feel like 4-0. And they were super thankful that Cleve got that 7-5 set to just end it, or they were going to be out there for a while because they were down sets on the other 2. And if it was going to be Spizzirri, they were just starting a third, hadn't even gotten going. So that was going to be a long match. But, like I said, coulda, woulda, shoulda. They got 3, 4, and 5 straight sets, and they're on.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I would also point out the fact that, look, what do the best teams do? They get off the court in those scenarios. They find a way to make it a 4-0 win, not let things get complicated. That is what Harper managed to do. You nailed it perfectly. I think this Pepperdine team was rock solid, but again, they just didn't have the big guns to deal with Texas, which Texas, of course, has throughout the course of the lineup. And look, if you're Texas, you've lost 3 matches all season long, 2 of them to TCU, 1 to Ohio State. Those are your 2 and 3 seeds. Yeah, Longhorns are feeling good entering postseason play, and maybe more than anything else, they're feeling healthy entering postseason play. And for 3 years, we've known how dangerous this team can be when healthy. All right, that's 1. That's 2. We should spend the equivalent of time as the Buckeyes did on court this past weekend, because if you've learned anything about this Ohio State team this year, when they beat you, they crush you. Chris, no disrespect to the Louisville Cardinals, shout out super producer Daniel Westoff, but this was a 100-minute match. 4-0 Buckeyes. I'll continue to say it. I've watched a lot of really good Ohio State teams over the years, and me saying this doesn't guarantee they're going to win a national championship. This is the best of the bunch.
I totally agree. I mean, this is like, they are better equipped right now to win a national championship, I think, than a team that had, that you and I sat there and watched beat my Mississippi State Bulldogs with Torp at 1 and JJ Wolf at 2 and McNally at 3. I mean, this team is better equipped to do it. And yeah, I mean, they blitz you out. What I can't explain is how a team can be so dominant against good teams, because they beat the snot out of Texas when they beat them, right? How you can be so dominant against them, and then all of a sudden one day, boom, it's a dogfight and you lose. I mean, it's very hard to explain. You can't reason it. We'll just see what happens. But for sure, they have to. I mean, if you're an Ohio State fan, you have good reason to say, yeah, we think we're favorites to win. You could be.
Lucianic said it great on our show, 25 years of experience in their doubles lineup. That's hilarious. Like, do the math, folks. At least 4 years across the board. 25 divided by 6. That's at least 4 years across the board. Anthrop's winning at 6. Bernard's playing a lot better. Trotter's 25-0. Like, what's the pathway to 4?
Yeah, is that going to be the way they lose? Like, Trotter's going to lose his first match and it'll be the clincher if they lose, or otherwise they win the title. I mean,
that's the thing. In any other year, you're like the unequivocal national championship favorite. This year, you can say that about every team, and that's what makes this so fun. But again, Louisville's good. Like their top three is really good. And again, it didn't matter because everywhere else, the Buckeyes just they
Yeah, it's
Buckeyed.
just another level at Ohio
Yeah,
State.
it's
Yeah.
it's really fun to watch. So again, that's a really good Ohio State team. They're on the level, and again, it's going to be fascinating to watch them compete down the postseason's home stretch. We already mentioned number 4, Kentucky, so let's move on to another team that's done a lot of winning of late. Defending NCAA champions Virginia, they make it 18 consecutive victories, entering the Sweet 16, 4 over Navy, 4 over Ole Miss. The doubles point was tight. Not much else was.
Yeah, I mean, look, they've waltzed through everything since indoors, and and now I would say with no disrespect whatsoever, here towards Duke, they're getting a very favorable draw on a team that they know well and have and have handled. So this is I see no stopping the Virginia train that's rolling straight into Orlando at this point.
I agree with you. By the way, you remember how a couple of weeks ago, like the genius Scotty Bowman, I motivated you by telling you how efficient Jay was?
Yeah.
I just want you to know you've been very efficient tonight because it's got to go both ways. I just
Yeah.
want you to know. Yeah, there you deserve positive affirmation as well. Yeah, it's hard to disagree. Like Kiefer, I think, is like 16-5 at this point of the season. Dahlberg is getting better. Look, if you're going to beat Virginia, doubles 5-6. You got to go through there because that top 4 is that good. But 5-6 continue to play better.
Yeah, I just don't. We just
Yeah.
and we've said this through the length of the ACC season as well. They just didn't get huge tests there.
Mhm.
They're still not going to at Duke, and so now we're into whatever the. I mean, look, in all honesty, it's not even like the 5-4 matchup would be assuming that they win. That's the Kentucky Stanford winner, both of whom, what's the weakness on both those teams? 5-6 and doubles. I mean, like Virginia's not getting, we're not even going to get to see, even if they make it that far, and that's a big if, but even if they make it that far, we don't see them get that test until the semifinals. So
It's a fair argument to make. What I would counter with is A, Kentucky beat them earlier in the season. B, Kentucky, it's strength on strength. It's like, hey, we match up the same way.
yeah, totally
And
agreed. I'm just saying that if they make it that far and we're still questioning, like, what do they have there? I'm not sure we know because I don't think they're
yeah,
getting the test down there. If they win, they're going to win because they won the strength on strength battle. And if they lose, they lost the strength on strength battle.
yeah, all right. I think that's very fair. Again, though, they're rounded into form. It's been to win 18 consecutive matches 2 years in a row. It's a joke. The ACC's
in a
good.
conference like the ACC.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not like this isn't. I was going to name a conference, but honestly, we know too many coaches now, and I'm afraid, so I'm not going to. Um, but it's the ACC, and they've done it now 3 years in a row. Absolutely ridiculous.
You can say the A-Sun. Liberty's leaving.
And you said it, so that's fine. You gave an example. I don't need to. Let's move on to the 6th-seeded Georgia Bulldogs. Do I think part of their result had to do with the fact that it took NC State like 4 hours to beat Oklahoma in the first round, and you just wonder how much was left in the legs of the Sooners on day 2? Sure, you have to think that. But look, Georgia wins very comfortably over Oklahoma. The 1 point on the board for Oklahoma due to a stomach bug Trent Bryde had. Now, that's the good news. It wasn't an injury. It was a stomach bug. He'll be full go over the course of this weekend. Bulldogs need him. But look, credit to Georgia, man. Doubles point without him. Straight set victories in 3 singles matches. It was a good day for the Dogs.
Yeah, I mean, I keep waiting for the fact that someone's going to jump up and surprise Georgia, and it's just not happening. They just keep answering. They keep answering the bell at every turn. So we'll see. I like their chances. Obviously, Athens is just a huge great place to play. Big home advantage. If you're going to have a home court advantage, it's going to be tough for anybody to go in there and win. And they're showing they deserve to be, that team that's favored to make it to Orlando. And at this point, yeah, I mean, it was good to hear that it wasn't anything, serious, if you will, with Trent Bride when we all turned up and said, whoa, where, Paul's selling doubles. What's going on? But yeah, they handled it well and they cruised through the weekend pretty easily.
We knew what Kreuter was capable of, but for Miguel Perez Pena, the sophomore, 19-6, tied for the team lead in victories. He's been the reason he makes it a full team. By the way, Ethan Quinn, he's won his last 9 decisions, 7-0 in his last 10 matches overall, 7-0-3, I should say. You're right. Like, it's almost like they're the Sabalenka of this 2023 season. And that you're like, okay, but there's going to be a letdown, right? And there just isn't. And
yeah, you keep waiting for it. They're the team you think it's coming from, and it doesn't come. And I'll tell you what, it's like 3 seasons for Ethan Quinn, right? It's the fall, then it's the start to the spring.
No, then it's indoors.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
Okay, / the start to the spring, and then it's outdoors / the end of the spring. And if you're back to, hey, we got the guy that you can't beat, man, they're going to be really tough.
I agree. And to finish the analogy, you waited for the letdown. It didn't come. So like at a certain point, 4 months, you have to say, oh no, this team is just straight up good. And that's the takeaway. This team is straight up good. Very fun to watch. Excited for their matchup. I think it's a fun one with Harvard. And obviously we're going to get to that here in a little bit. Let's move to number 7. Wolverines, University of Michigan, get the win they need. 4-0 over Toledo, but then perhaps more impressively, 4-0 over Cal. And look, shout out to Cal. That's a good 4-1 win over LSU in round 1. Coach Quinta has that Cal team headed in a fun direction. If you're Michigan, you win doubles without Fenty and Young, both matches this weekend. Bickerstaff gets 2 wins at 6. Gavin started playing better tennis at 5. I know some people at the match, some sources informed me. They go, yeah, Michigan was up 3-0. And Styler was up a set non-serve 4-3 or 5. I think it was 4-3. And someone goes, yeah, he saw 0.3 go up on the board. And you could see he's like, all right, I'll finish my match now. And it went break, hold, and like just the sort of thing you do when you're the guy. And look, I mean, again, I think you could say this about a lot of these teams. I do think Michigan is one where it shouts most brightly. I don't think they've played their best match of the season yet. They're getting closer, Chris. What do you think of the weekend?
Boy, they definitely, I mean, if they want to win a national championship, they absolutely have not played their best match of the season yet. They have to continue to progress here. Super impressive weekend, obviously, for them. I think, to me, the key guy is still going to be Andrew Fenty. I mean, it's kind of like which, he's got the talent. And I was going to make this analogy with Kentucky, because I see the same thing there with Alafiayeni. Both of those guys, when they decide they're going to play, and B, they're actually, they're on. They can play with anybody, and I mean anybody. And then all of a sudden you see days where they just don't show up. And I think that's the key for me is you got to get those guys, both of them. They have to show up. They have to be in their matches. And yeah, if Fenty is on, especially now where they've got him, and if you've got Maloney healthy and serving well, yeah, we know what Styler's going to do. And yes, to your point, Aaron Schneider getting, he's just going to get better with each match. He hasn't, this is almost like early spring for him, right? He's just come back and started playing again. So, court time, match time is important. These guys are, I think they're going to be there. They're just getting there later than we thought, and that's your hope, is that progression is it's still going, and it's not just sort of up and down, but we're getting better every match still.
Let the record show it's not my hope. You're being the plural Michigan fans' hopes there out of Chris. I'm not going to let him throw that bias my way. Let's move on to number 8, Tennessee. You could argue, were the most impressive team of the opening weekend to beat Wake Forest 4-0 in the fashion they did in that regional final. Wake Forest, of course, an impressive 4-1 win over Memphis in the first round. But, you look for Tennessee, they take the doubles point in dominant fashion. They were up breaks on all 3 courts. Monday, 1-1 over Estathio. That's a joke. Bicknell, he was down, I think, 3-1 in that match. Wins 10 straight games to get through in straight sets. And then look, credit to Wake Forest, they didn't just roll over. Wake Forest, after dropping 5 first sets, they made a little bit of a comeback, but still, for Tennessee to take doubles, 5 first sets against this Wake Forest group, to get the closeout from Hud, who's been on the wrong end of way too many three-setters this year, it's a big weekend for the Vols. They're looking good.
They are. Yeah, I mean, I still think the problem is it's so many of these teams. You go, hey, what are you going to get at 5 and 6? I think that's still a question here, but definitely nice weekend for Bicknell. Monday, like you said, but I don't know what I mean. I don't care if it was 1-1 or 5-6. It's you just expect him to win regardless. But when you beat Melios 1-1, that's freaking impressive. Yeah, that Tennessee is. We said it. They're coming on. They're going to get one more match at home here against a foe they know very well, and we'll see. But they look really good right now.
Number 9, South Carolina also looked good. 4-1 win over Florida State after, look, it was a sloppy performance for South Carolina. They got pushed against South Carolina State in that opening round match. Florida State, doubles point was shaky. They were really dominant in singles over Baylor. And so, again, coming into the day, you felt like maybe Florida State's going to give a struggling South Carolina team a real run. In the end, they did not. They did, but South Carolina able to hold on. South Carolina taking the doubles point. Samuel does his thing at the top spot. And then I should say outside of that, there were battles everywhere. This match was 4-1 in name only. In the end, Thompson, Houle, 3-set wins at 2 and 5 respectively. You could see how much it meant to Thompson when he did clinch. Thoughts on the Gamecocks after this opening weekend?
Yeah, I mean they got pushed. We expected them to get pushed. We didn't expect them to get pushed like they did at the start of the match against South Carolina State. But yeah, that was a tough one that I think, that's one of those, if you say, hey, we're going to play it 10 times, it's probably like a 6-4 type deal, if not 5-5. And it might be just, hey, home team wins every time. But, again, they did what they needed to do. I still have questions about the bottom of the lineup. Samuel's fine, even though ACC is hurt and not able to do a whole lot. Samuel's going to be fine regardless. Thompson's going to be fine regardless. The questions come from 3 days. It's not just 5 and 6 with them. It's Story Lambling 5 and 6. So we'll see. That's going to be an interesting matchup at Knoxville, I think.
Yeah, and again, we're going to talk about those in a minute. We're going to go even faster through these final ones, folks. I apologize if we're going to skip through your team here, but again, we really want to talk about those super regionals, so we'll get them on the back end. Number 10, USC Trojans, pushed a little bit, no doubt, by San Diego, but playing better doubles, still finding their form. Another team you're like, have you played your best match yet? I don't think so. Thoughts on the Trojans? 4-0 over Idaho, 4-1 over San Diego.
Yeah, still really worried about the doubles, and big picture wise, that's the concern for me is doubles. Steph and Lerner are going to be fine, even though they both dropped first sets. Yeah. In that match, and Steph I think drops the match. But I mean, that big picture, I don't have concerns over them. It's the doubles. I think their entire singles lineup is just fine. I will go to war and battle 3-all against anybody with that singles lineup. The question is, do I get the other point in doubles if all I do is go 3-all? And I'm not there yet with them. So that's the concern.
Yeah, and that doubles point, again, for both Michigan and USC this weekend. We'll talk about how big that one is because you might feel like that one's for all the marbles. Number 11, Harvard, first Sweet 16 since 2004 for the Crimson. Now, they were the beneficiary, I suppose, of a little bit of an upset. Arizona State 4-3 over Illinois was by far one of the best first-round matches we saw all weekend. We were fortunate enough to broadcast it. Man, credit to Harvard. After taking the doubles point, they dropped the first set at the first top 3 single spots, against Arizona State. It was like 4-all or 5-all on courts 4 and 5, but in the end, 4-0 victory for Harvard. All of their top 3 guys win their second sets. They get 3 straight set wins at 4, 5, 6. Chris, that's not just Ivy League good. That's top 16 good. When you win doubles, you win 3 straight set matches, you split in the places you lost. Like, that's a hell of a weekend for Harvard.
Yeah, they very impressive. I think they came out on top in the Ivy League. I think they were the best team this year in the Ivy League, and they are not just, oh, they're good for an Ivy League team. They're just good, and they will go down and battle Georgia at Georgia, and they can compete at. They're going to compete at all six positions with you. You know, it's not like, oh, they've got, three or four good guys at the top. They're fine all the way through the lineup. So that's going to make for an interesting match. But yeah, you're right. They after they dropped those the three sets at the top of the lineup, the first three, they were on serve or even, trailing, but maybe on serve with scoreboard pressure at 4 and 5. And it was not clear that they were going to be able to even get those other three first sets. It looked for a while there like, man, they're going to lose 4 first sets and be behind the 8 ball. And yeah, they just turned it on. Start of the second set, they just rolled.
Yeah. No, it's again, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like this group is good. And so it's going to be fun to watch them compete and be in that Athens environment. And, again, 80-degree heat is not something you get in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So the hotter the day, certainly it will be fascinating to see how these Crimson respond. But yeah, I mean, listen to Nicholas Gruskin, who will do 30 minutes on Harris Walker unprompted. That guy's legit number one. And watching him versus Quinn, it's going to be a really fun match. Number 12, Duke. First Sweet 16 since 2015 for the Blue Devils. Now, they messed around a little bit this weekend. 4-2 win over UNCW. You also had Cornell 4-3 upset victory. Took like 6 hours to knock off Auburn, but they do it. In the end, Duke then 4-1 over Cornell. Duke could have closed things out. They weren't able to do it. A couple 3 sets ultimately end up unfolding. But look, Rodinas is still Rodinas. This team's getting really good at doubles points, and when you're up 2-0, you got to find 2 more through the other 5. They're really good at doing that. Like, where are you with this Duke team? You think they got a shot? Oh, well, I guess I'll ask you that in a second, but what do you think of their weekend?
I mean, they won. We expected them to win, but boy, it wasn't pretty, that's for sure. I mean, there's a lot of schools we could say that about, but yeah, I think, I mean, just the fact that they went 4-2 in the first round with UNCW, and then all of these 3-set matches in the Sunday, or I don't know if it was Saturday or Sunday, but lost track of time. We were on broadcasting so much, but yeah, the match against Cornell, they had so many 3-set matches that, I mean, I think they got pushed a little more in both matches than I thought they would. In the end, I don't think it's changing my outlook on anything. As you said, I still think Virginia rolls through there, but so the fact that they got pushed doesn't hurt anything. But yeah, it wasn't the best weekend for them, but they won, and that's what matters.
Absolutely. Well, again, for the sake of brevity, we can move on. I'll disagree with you when we get into our super regional assessments, I suppose. Not that I really disagree with yours. I think that's fair. They were good. Good, not great. But guess what? Good teams, they find good and they find ways to win. And it's proof that Duke is good. Well, we already talked about the Columbia upset. So now we go to number 14, Arizona. They were also sort of a beneficiary of a first round upset. Credit to Oklahoma State, man. That's a great 4-2 win. And that has something to do with the fact that when you're playing for your tournament life for like 2 months consecutively, as the Cowboys really were, they just have that edge. It's the same way the teams that have to fight their way into the postseason in baseball and basketball and hockey and football. They just have that little extra edge to them going into the postseason. Credit to this Oklahoma State team. That's a really good win. But then, look, man, that's a great weekend for Arizona. 4-0 over Boise State in the Shields Bowl, 4-0 over Oklahoma State. They weren't really tested either. This might have been again, considering it was the national spotlight, you win this, you get to host the kickoff weekend. Arizona kind of needed this to really get themselves back into that elite program mix, and credit to them, they got it.
Yeah, a great weekend for Arizona. There's no doubt they had to be one of the winners from the weekend in terms of, they took something from this. They're going to take some momentum out of here, I think, and have to feel really good about the way they played. Yeah, I mean, it would have been a lot more fun had the Shields Bowl ended up with a little tighter match, but Oklahoma State, I think, as you mentioned, that's, you know, the win that they had to get in the Big 12 tournament just to be able to get into the NCAA tournament, and then the win over Florida. I mean, two huge wins for them. That's a great way to start for DT and his, getting into the NCAAs at Oklahoma State era. And
Mhm.
they're just outmanned here against Arizona. I mean, there's no other way to put it. That was going to be a tough battle for them no matter what. Great job getting there, but Arizona they were very impressive.
Zevert's 15-5, Smith 17-6, Strom 19-2, Hoyer all 14-6, Friend 15-6. They got guys, and again, we'll talk about why their matchup with Ohio State might be particularly exciting this weekend. Last two here, Bulldogs, Mississippi State. I know you've heard of them, Chris. They get a really impressive victory, 4-2 over Middle Tennessee State to advance to the Super Regional. Thoughts on how the Bulldogs performed this past weekend?
Yeah, so first we're gonna do a little time travel here back to the beginning of the season when we got.
Okay, just remember we're on the clock, so time travel
Right.
fast.
This is a quick time travel, but I tried to warn you, and you scoffed. You scoffed at
Here
me,
we
Gruskin.
go. I should have seen this coming. Is this the surprise?
You scoffed at me,
There it
so I
is.
received a lovely text this week. I'm going to play it for you. This is every Monday morning, literally the entire year, every Monday morning, and it's only about a 15-second clip.
Oh no.
This is what Jake Jacoby wakes up to and listens to.
Here we go.
You're making your. Oh, I just cut you off. Live TV.
This is good. This is half the fun. Leave all this into the podcast.
Yeah, here you go.
You're making your way, so you've made your way through your list. So I'm gonna give you, and of course it's a self-served, as you would expect, a sleeper to watch. Watch out for my Mississippi State Bulldogs this
Oh, I mean, sure, you could.
Ah,
There we go. As long as I like that. That's good.
that was the whole clip, but that was every Monday. Jake listened to that for his motivation, and I got the thanks for backing them. But yeah, look, they they had a great season. They're not done yet, obviously. And it was a good year for them. They had faced both Middle Tennessee and Tulane during the year. They had beaten them in tough matches. They got a dogfight. I mean, that was an absolute dogfight against Middle Tennessee outdoors. And that was Middle Tennessee without Polstrom, who didn't travel with them this weekend after declaring that he was going into the portal. A big both doubles and singles loss for them. And those guys were, I mean, they put up a fight. Mississippi State, again, they did what they had to do. They put it down, and they've played at TCU before. They gave TCU a battle there. I expect, look, that's going to be obviously that's a very tough ask. I expect another war out of them down in Fort Worth.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was a really fun match. Like to have the wave of 3 sets, to have the crowd, and I know talking to Matt Roberts, it was a near record crowd in the stadium. It was really good. Credit to this Middle Tennessee team, man. This was a hell of a 2-year run. Like this team has legit been top 20 good now for a couple of years consecutively, and they absolutely could have beaten some of these top 16 seeds with the performance they put together.
Well, and you talk about that freshman class that they had this year. Look, they only lose Ram and you and Lumsden this year, and they get that freshman class back. And look, I'm telling you, there's going to be more this coming year. So that's going to be a team that's going to be getting better for the next couple of years.
Well, next year's the final year of the super teams, and it's just going to be fascinating to see how all of these teams are in that final year, then what they do the next season to react to all the losses across the country, because there'll be a mass exodus of players. It's a hell of a win for Mississippi State. And again, they advanced to another Sweet 16 under Coach Matt Roberts. And with that said, last but certainly not least, everyone pulls an acorn. A blind squirrel gets the acorn, Chris. I suppose that's your Mississippi State prediction from early in the year. What prediction? I'm sure if you looked at, I would venture to say this is probably the host team most picked to be upset in the college tennis ranks bracket challenge. UNC They dropped the doubles point to Old Dominion. It was weird after that. But man, credit to UNC, who comes out firing in doubles. And then, there's this moment at the end of the match. They have 3 breakers happening simultaneously. A guy who's done the most winning on the team of anyone, Carl Poling, loses his second set breaker after being up a set and a break for the majority of the match. So all of a sudden Utah's lingering. Well, nope. Benjamin Kate, straight set victory with his tiebreak win at 5. They get another really good straight set victory from Segerman at the number 2 spot. He seems to be healthy, playing his best tennis again. And then look, whether it was Zap, who was in a winning position at 6, or Cernak, who comes up with a couple of brilliant passing shots to clinch the match in straight sets. I'm telling you, I think UNC TCU is going to be frisky, Chris. Excuse me, UNC Texas. I think this UNC team, I still like, they're another team, a prime example of they haven't played their best match yet, and I just don't know what that ceiling is.
Yeah, they haven't. I love how both on the broadcast and now you still flip Old Dominion and Drake.
Did I do that twice?
You did.
Hilarious.
Yeah, they played Drake, not Old Dominion. But yeah, and it was too. This was the too much blue region.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the Ohio State too much red region, North Carolina too much blue region. Yeah, they. I'm with you, and I think you're right in your assessment that it could get frisky. And only because I would say when we were talking about Georgia saying, hey, they're the team that we just keep saying, yeah, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? I was going to say they were kind of like the poor man's Texas, because I feel the same way about Texas, although just better than Georgia, but sort of like, yeah, I think with their history of playing 4-3 matches with these guys over the past couple of years and what's happened, I expect somebody to really push them. And I wouldn't be totally surprised if North Carolina did.
Yeah, no, it's going to be fun to watch. And again, a disappointment certainly for Utah, just given the momentum they had going into this match to not get a singles victory on the board. Again, but UNC got wins at 1 and 2. That would have been the last script any of us would have written. For them to win this match without Jansen and Poling, who have been their rocks at 3 and 4 all year long. Tar Heels are hitting their stride. And with that theme in mind, we can finally get to previewing this weekend's super regional action. Again, 8 fantastic matches, many of which we will have featured for you on our Cracked Racquets broadcast on Friday and Saturday. Chris, I'm going to go by order of intrigue in my head. It's the same question for you. I'm going to ask for each. You're going to give your thoughts. I'll respond. You get the final word. We're going to be efficient in our word choices here again. Let's start. What's my most intriguing? Well, I'll be self-indulgent. It's just if we picked anything else, we'd be lying. Number 7, Michigan. Number 10, USC. It's a rematch of the regular season. Wolverines knocked off the Trojans in Ann Arbor earlier this year. Now, obviously, much more likely this match is played outdoors than that one was. It's also worth noting back then, USC didn't have this guy. I don't know if you've heard of him by the name of freshman learner Tien, who obviously Kalamazoo champion now in their lineup. It's a whole different Trojan ball game. Trojans, you look overall this season, 21 and 7. Wolverines, 25 and 4. Chris, thoughts on the matchup? Keys to it? Who you picking?
Well, I mean, I think we're going to start with doubles. And I think you have to favor Michigan here. Just USC still hasn't come around in doubles yet. I also think it's a must-win point for Michigan at doubles. I see probably a clearer path in my head, even though it's an away match, a better possibility for USC in singles. I don't think Michigan's taking 4 singles matches off of USC. So, obviously they can, and it's going to be a bunch of 3-setters is my guess. But I really think they need to win that doubles point. I think USC is probably more capable, and they're more used to having to do that this year without the doubles point. Man, I would also say if I was a Michigan fan, I would have much preferred to see the Fenty-Tien matchup than Maloney-Tien and Fenty-Mack. I think that, to me, that almost makes me want to swing this in USC's favor, just because I think Tien is going to, I mean, he's going to be a tough out. If Maloney's fully healthy, by all means, that's a toss-up match. If Maloney has any issues with the serve, Tien's going to make him pay. And that Fenty Mac matchup, the top three is going to be, boy, it would be, boy, would I pay to have cameras on those courts, Gruskin. But alas, it doesn't matter. Yeah, there's so many question marks. I have to stick in my own head. I got to stick with what I picked from the beginning, and that is Michigan. As hard as that's going to be to say, I'm going to take the Wolverines to prevail at home. The only Friday match, by the way, on the men's side. But this could go anywhere. I think if they lose the doubles point, they're probably done. But I think they take the doubles point, and then they're just going to scrap and find singles. I think Styler will get it done over Steph. And then I think I think they may be in a little trouble at both 2 and 3, but then between 4, 5, and 6, I think they come back and find 2 more of those.
Well, those are the fascinating matchups. Nino versus Wojtek, Fry versus Young, and then if it's Wistrade versus
this is a spot for Gavin. He hasn't been great lately. He's got to turn it around and beat Fry.
Well, both teams on paper, the top threes are just jokes.
Yeah.
Styler's 20-1.
Yeah, I mean that's
14-2. Yeah, Fenty.
They're toss dart pick'ems up there.
Exactly. It's going to be really good tennis. I think 4-3 is the number. I agree. Doubles point feels like the most significant. It's a crime that this match isn't on any camera. I guess do the rain dance at home, folks, because if it's indoors, it moves into cameras, and then we all get to see it. They're playing in singles and doubles, so my solution, in lieu of having them even play that double set at 3, just have Styler and Dostanic play 3 out of 5 and make it worth 1.5 points. And that's your swing match, because that's what everyone's showing up to see. It's gonna be a really fun battle in Ann Arbor. You say Wolverines 4-3, Chris?
That's where I'll go. But here's the better question. It's a Friday match. Let's say it rains. Do they go indoors or do they play it Saturday?
They go indoors. I think they're playing that match on Friday, no matter what. It's pretty locked in from the vibes I have received. But,
okay.
All right. With all of that said, God, who's the second most interesting? If you could make a really good claim for a bunch of different things.
I like the Kentucky-Stanford match.
All right, then that's where we'll go next. Number 4, Kentucky hosting unseeded Stanford. You look for these two teams, Kentucky again, 16-4 overall in the year. Stanford 16-10. That just doesn't feel right coming out of my mouth.
Ridiculous.
Again, keys to the match, Chris. What are you looking for? Which way you leaning?
I mean, as much as I want to say that it should, that you want to win it on your side, I think I'm looking to see how do the guys for Stanford look that seem to be out of position, if you will, and that is they're 3 and 4 in Basavaretti and Basing. If those guys look good, and man, a Basavaretti Lapadat match, wow, even if Basavaretti looks good, that's going to be a tough match. Basing at 4 with Tahabadi, these are going to be great matches all the way around. I can't take Stanford just because they finally got all 4 in the lineup. I don't think they looked great last weekend. They could very well do it because look, I don't think Kentucky looked great last weekend. They both teams found a way to win. Neither team came out and rolled the other guys. Kentucky's at home. They're going to have a crowd there. I'll say Kentucky, neither team particularly strong in doubles. Great match, Ferry and Draxel. I would love to see the Ferry Draxel match and see if Draxel can really work his way into Ferry's head. Ferry's I don't see that kind of stuff get to him much. I don't know that he plays a lot of guys like Draxel in singles. I mean, I can't picture anybody out there. Steph's not, going through a lot of antics, et cetera. So I think it'll be a different ball game for him. I'm going to take the Wildcats. Not going to be surprised at all if Stanford shows up and wins.
Strength on strength. Again, both these teams really good top four. Got to attack them at 5 and 6. Kentucky's just better at those two positions. Like, you have to beat Kosnay. I don't think any of Kolazinski, I mentioned the records earlier for Kolazinski and Rajesh and Chaudhry. They're not noticeably better than the 11-10 of Kosnay. And I think Weeks is the best player in that combination of any of the 5. And he's at 5 for Kentucky. So I just think, again, that's going to be a massive strength for Kentucky this weekend. And then we saw last weekend. Good luck beating Drexel at home if you're Ferry. Good luck taking 2 of those 2 through 4 matches, which you kind of have to do to beat Kentucky. And so, yeah, I understand the pick. At the same time, we just saw what Stanford did going on the road, beat Columbia. It would be very Stanford-esque for them to earn a victory. So perhaps we'll be on the lookout for it this weekend. All right, let's move on to 8-9. Tennessee, South Carolina, the rematch. Tennessee earning a victory over the Gamecocks earlier in the season. That match was at South Carolina. Didn't matter as Tennessee's able to get that win. Of course, last year, South Carolina reciprocated, earning a victory in Knoxville. So many of the members, Samuel, Thompson, Lambling, Story, all these guys, they've accomplished this before. Go to Knoxville, earn a victory. Obviously, if you're treating these teams as stocks, exact opposite pathways. Tennessee has been a stock on the rise over these past 3 months, continuing to elevate versus a South Carolina team. You feel like they hit their high point after that victory over Ohio State at the start of March. No secrets between these two teams. Keys to the match. Which way you leaning, Chris?
I mean, this is going to be. We talk about teams that have neither of the teams particularly good in doubles. Both of these teams really good in doubles. I think that's going to be a great spot. I think South Carolina's got to win the doubles. Tennessee's going to. I mean, they've got the home court advantage, as you mentioned. They're on the way up. South Carolina, not so much. South Carolina's got to rely on the strength that is their strength, and that's doubles 1-2. I have no idea how Toby Samuel beats Johannes Monday, but I think he needs to. I think South Carolina needs to take doubles. I think they need Toby Samuel and Connor Thompson, and then, find what if they can get that. I think they can find one of 3 through 6. But I don't think it's going to be an easy path. Like you said, they did it last year. Tennessee's just got everything going their way right now. It's an uphill battle. You got to make them the favorite. I think South Carolina needs those 3 points I mentioned. I don't think they get them. I just don't see you beating Monday in outdoors in Knoxville. Samuel will probably much rather see him indoors. I'll say Tennessee's probably going to take this 4-2.
I mean, you don't have to beat Monday once. You got to beat him twice if you're Samuel. You got to beat him and Harper in doubles. You got to beat him in singles as well. And that's just a really tough proposition, especially on the road. It's not they need Thompson. It's a must-have for Thompson. He has to beat Hud. They need Story, who's had a better year than Bicknell, but Bicknell's playing better right now after the Story injuries. And so that's another need for South Carolina. Diaz has been so good at 5, and Rodriguez has really found his form at 6. Like, it's a really, Mitsui, I know he struggled last weekend.
Yeah, that's why I just don't see how South Carolina does it without those top 3,
That said, they're that good. Like, we've seen South Carolina go to Knoxville a year ago, beat Angel Diaz on their way to a 4-3 win.
Who are we even going to see at 6 for South Carolina? That's another question.
De Silva or Beasley. It's fair to ask. So with that in mind, give me a pick.
I'll take Tennessee 4-2.
All right, I like to hear it. Well, then with that said, again, all of these matches are so good. Who do I think you're going to make a most interesting case for next? Let's just get it out of the way. TCU, Mississippi State, a rematch, 2019 Super Regional. TCU went to Starkville, knocked off the Bulldogs. Can Mississippi State return the favor, Chris? What do you think about this matchup? Which way you leaning?
I still see the Famba backhand down the line. Golly. Unbelievable. I mean, that's a really tough ask. Look, TCU is, no Famba last week. Interesting to see, if I don't know, was that a health thing? What's going on? Just a a really tough match for Mississippi State. They will fight them. They will, they'll make it a dog fight. I just don't see them getting out on top of TCU and Fort Worth. Too much on the TCU side. I mean, that team is stacked. It's going to be very hard. They maybe if Famba's out in doubles, we make that it gets to be an interesting doubles point. And I'm not sure where you even if you do, I don't know where you find 3 singles against them. It's got obviously you got to get 6, whoever that is at 6 for TCU, right? I mean, whether it's Vives, whether it's Maxted, whether it's Girsek, you got to get that. I don't see it happening. TCU 4-1.
Gorsny, Jong have lost like 2 combined matches. Fernley's been the real deal at one, a top 10 player all season long. And then, the craziest part is their best points doubles, where it's like, yeah, we don't need to play Pennington Jones. Captain Jack, you're on the bench for this one because Maxton and Jong are that good. Yeah, I get the pick.
Yeah, these top 3 are just, actually 2 of Texas, you even feel like, maybe you take a run at, but TCU, Ohio State are just so dominant.
Yeah, I want to see TCU flex their muscles, and I don't think we've seen, they did in the Big 12's conference tournament. I want to see them do it at this super regional as well. You mentioned Texas. We'll just straight up go there next. Number 1, Texas. Number 16, North Carolina. 2 teams that have obviously had so much success over the past half decade plus. Look, Spiz is 20-1. You look at a guy across the board. Aramili 10-3. Harper's 14-6. Waldeep's had a really good bounce back season, 16-7. That said, the numbers for this team actually aren't outstanding given their 24-3 record. They take some losses across the board. They just always seem to find their way to 4. That's been the case for them for multiple years now. But I'll tell you what, again, Segerman, 15-6 this year. Jansen, 15-5 this year. Poling, 18-3 this year. Cernak's finally healthier, and a lefty against Spiz is just an interesting matchup. Again, Kate's playing better. Zap seems to be finally healthy, and it's North freaking Carolina. If you're going to call a Trip Phillips coach team bad at doubles, you just don't know ball. I think this match is going to be fun, Chris. Give me the case. Give me which way you're leaning and who you think is going to take it.
I mean, you have to lean Texas. They're a heavy favorite, right? But your argument is valid. North Carolina could make this interesting. They definitely have the skills in doubles to compete and could very easily take that doubles point. If they do, look, I made a living. I feel like I've probably got 4 or 5, cases where I've picked against Cernak, and he's been able to be kind to me with, and not blast me on Twitter. But under no circumstance am I taking Cernak to beat Spiz. Right? Sure. But I'm not saying that can't happen, but I'm not going to take that.
Not in Austin.
Yeah. But I do think that you can make the case going down the lineup after that for Segerman, Jansen, and Poling to all be legitimate chances to win their match. And if that's the case and they can sneak doubles, look, you've already got a possibility there. And that's without talking about Kate or Zap. And look, Aramili's been good for Texas. He could be beaten if Zap is healthy. Kate looked great last weekend. And that would be, to me, a really intriguing match for him with Harper. I'd like to see that. For a 116 matchup, this is, in my mind, eons closer of a match than the 215 and 314 matches. And we haven't gotten to the 314 yet, but I do think that, there's possibilities here. Now, look, Texas could just come out and wipe them 4-0. I don't know. That's just not the way they usually roll. I think Carolina could actually give them a push. And I don't think Carolina is going to go down 4-0. Ultimately, in Austin, I think Texas will prevail, and I think it'll be a 4-2 match.
I think it's going to be really good as well. Again, Poling, Segerman, Cernak last time on the job. They got to have doubles because there's got to be some belief there going into
Yeah.
the singles. And, again, I agree with you. I think this match is really close. I'm very excited that we're going to have it on our broadcast for all of you to enjoy Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. You said 3:14. We'll go there next. No team is maybe better suited to compete in Columbus than these
100%.
Arizona Wildcats, who have that edge, who have that feistiness. 23-6 overall is Arizona. I talked about the gaudy singles numbers. They're 105-36 in individual singles matches this season. That's ridiculous. That's over a 70% win percentage. Chris, the Buckeyes are 124-16. And again, Trotter, 26-0. Tracy, 17-2. What a disappointment he is relative to the 17-1 Cash, or the 14-2 freshman Anthrop, the 15-2 Bernard. That was a joke, by the way. Tracy's been awesome I think he's lost like 5 dual matches in his career. You know who has the most losses on the team in dual match play? Justin Boulay, who's 13-5 playing the 1 and 2 spots. They're 59-15 in doubles. I think we might see Tim Siebert in doubles this weekend. I'm not going to lie, but short of us seeing that, like, this team is that good. Chris Halioris. By the way, I hope you all caught that Siebert joke. 5 years later, we're still rolling.
It's Siebert and Tubert lining up together, I think.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, it's Siebert and Luchanik.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, again, we talked about how good this team is. I'll tell you what, though, Arizona's got some chippiness. If it's outdoors, obviously Arizona's playing a ton more outdoor tennis. You never pick against Ohio State and Columbus. You're a fool if you do. But I think this match is sneaky fun.
Yeah, it's going to be like sneaky fun for about an hour and 45 minutes.
Which is a win against this Buckeyes team because it's hard to get to triple digits.
Yeah, I mean, if this match goes indoors for any reason, forget it. It's done. Like, there's no need to even play. But yeah, you are correct. Arizona is the kind of team that they've got that attitude. They've got the swagger. They will enjoy that Columbus crowd and everything that comes with it, and take it in vain and play it the way they need to. Ohio State's just too good. I mean, I don't know how to get. I can't get around it. They're too good. I don't see Arizona being able to make that much of a push against them. Like, for every reason you mentioned. I mean, they just don't lose singles matches. I don't know how you're going to win 3 singles matches, and you're probably not going to win doubles, so you're probably going to need 4.
Here's the thing. If Arizona gives them a tight match, I'll entertain outdoor Buckeyes. We need to have some questions going into Orlando. If Ohio State does what they do to so many teams, and they do it outdoors to this really resilient, very successful Arizona program, I'm not entertaining that argument for the rest of this year, because then, like, again, I've seen it too many times. When this Buckeye team beats you, they beat you. That said, again, I'm not quitting on this Arizona team. I think it's going to be a really fun match, one we're excited to have, of course, on our Cracked Racquets broadcast, noon Eastern time on Saturday. Last 2. Let's go to the University of Georgia next. 6th-seeded Bulldogs taking on the 11th-seeded Crimson. 15-year anniversary, Chris, where an undefeated University of Virginia team shocked 4-3 by Georgia in the NCAA semifinals. Who clinches that match? Assistant coach or associate head coach Jamie Hunt over now Harvard assistant Sunam Singh. It's crazy that that's 15 years later. I could still make a case for the 08 Virginia team being as good as any team in college tennis history, despite the fact they didn't win the title. Just go look at what all of those guys did in the pros. That's irrelevant to this match, which of course features a bunch of different guys, whether it's, again, Kreuter 19-7, Henning 17-5. I talked about MPP and Quinn earlier this year. It does feel like they're starting to hit their stride in doubles as well. Look, they're taking on a Harvard team. Von der Schulenberg and Walker can hang with anyone. But the real key for this team, we said it last weekend, Son and, Ronan Jachuk and, Pape and Milovsky. It's real depth. This is a real match. This is a battle, Chris. You said it's going to be fun. Which way you leaning? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the battles to watch in this match, honestly, I think are the ones down low, because if Harvard really does, if they're going to compete, I think they're going to have to find a way to beat Pena, they're going to have to find a way to compete at 4 and 5. Quinn's rolling. I know, Nicholas Gruskin loves Harris Walker. Boy, that's going to be a tough one. I mean, Quinn's back. We're outdoors. It's the end of the season. He's in great shape. There's going to be, I don't know if they'll get the 3,000 they want to get. It's going to be a triple figure crowd. They will be loud. It's the Georgia atmosphere. You have to be leaning Georgia, but look, I still have concerns. I'm still waiting for that someone to jump up and beat them. Hopefully, Bride's all good. That top three though, man, that's a very tough top three to take down. You got Quinn, you got Henning, you got Bride. And if Bride's if he is playing well at home, last match, yeah, you gotta take Georgia. But I know for most people, Harvard's not the household name in college tennis. You're going to want to sleep on them. Don't sleep on Harvard. These guys are good. They could very easily come in here and upset Georgia.
Well, then one more time, quickly here, just numbers, match calculus for Harvard. If they upset it, what's it look like?
I think Georgia's beatable in doubles. So you got to go in there and take the doubles point. As good as Harris Walker's been, I'm not counting on them taking that match at 1. I think you have to take advantage of Trent Bride at 3. So I think that's a spot you got to get. You got to beat Pena. And then, roll the dice. I'm going to chalk Quinn up. So forget that one. Roll the dice against the other, the other 3 points there and find one.
All right, there it is. That's our SEC correspondent, Chris Halioris. And so with that said, to get to our final match, one could argue we saved the best for last, given their spot as the defending NCAA champion, something we can say about them not for that much longer, but Virginia's won 18 in a row. 2 of those wins come over Duke. They beat them 7-0, I think, in the regular season, 4-1 in the conference tournament. Look, Rodinas is 17-0 at the 2 spot, 26-2 on the year. He's won his last 12 decisions consecutively. Again, Zhang's rounded into form, 13-8, playing better. Johns is 14-10. I've never seen Andrew Dale make an unforced error. He's 15-2 at the number 5 spot here this year. And look, there were a lot of third set matches in that 4-1 ACC tournament win. We say all the time how hard it is to beat a team 3 times in 1 year. That said, of course, Rodesh has won his last 10. Von der Schulenberg's 23-4. Getz is 21-3. They're getting better in doubles. Kiefer 16-4, and all the numbers are nice for a team that's won 18 in a row. Duke got any shot in this one, Chris, or you think it's going to be the same script?
I think it's going to be the same script. There's a very, very, very faint path for Duke.
What is it?
Your top 3, right? John's, which I don't know how you beat the top 3 of Virginia. The problem is they're just undermanned at 4, 5, and 6. Okay, Dale maybe, but Connor Cruz not beating Ryan Getz. Whoever they roll out at 6 could I think could beat them at 6 possibly. But look, the strength of this Duke team, Garrett Johns, Pedro Rodinas, Andrew Zhang. I think those guys are going to have to do it. So that's the path, is all 3 at a minimum, 2 of the 3 plus doubles, and then find one. So it's just that you're facing the gauntlet of, Rodesh, Montez, and Von der Schulenberg in those top 3 spots. So it's beyond me how you go into Virginia and do that. But that's the recipe.
I disagree. I think Dale can win at 5. Absolutely. I think, again, 6, if Ferris Khan on the right day can absolutely give the freshman Dahlberg a run. And then look, Johns and Zhang know exactly what they're getting. They've seen Rodesh. They've seen Von der Schulenberg all career long for these Blue Devils. There's just no secret between these two. Hell, the coaches were roommates in college for 40 years. And so, again, I think this match is going to be sneaky fun because there are no secrets between these two. I don't think we're going to get a single 4-0 win throughout the course of the weekend. I think everything's going to get a little frisky, as one would expect in the Super Regional round. And of course, we will have coverage again of these Super Regionals Friday, Saturday on our Cracked Racquets YouTube channel. A shout out, as always, to our super producer, Daniel Westoff, who makes all of our coverage possible. A shout out to Dalton Thieneman and the efforts of each of them behind the scenes. It means it's going to be a really fun month of May for all of us here at Cracked Racquets. And certainly we're excited to shine a spotlight on everything across divisions down the home stretch of this 2023 season. With that said, before we go, shout out as always to Tourna. Shout out as always to Ellesse, the support we get from each of them. Shout out to you, Chris Halioris. Jay mentioned that this might be our penultimate episode of the year because then we start recapping stuff. He's not wrong. Some scholars would argue that's correct. One to go before we know who the 2023 NCAA champion will be. With that in mind, any final thoughts before we wrap today's show?
No, I mean, look, my final thoughts are let's get these matches done and let's get to Orlando.
Very well said. Well, with that in mind, then, for the fantastic Chris Halioris, without whom I could not do these shows, for our super producer, Daniel Westoff, our friends at Tourna and Ellesse, and from all of us here at both Cracked Racquets and the Tennis Channel Podcast Network, I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. You know what we say. Chris, give it to him.
Hey, great shot.
And we will see you all next week. Thanks, everyone.